Welcome to the Rudik Report. Today is January 17th, 2023. Today I'd like to share a short video from Davos, where the World Economic Forum is presenting all the communist utopian ideas and laying out how best to enslave the population. In this video, Bastian Gerard, member of the Swiss National Council, breaks down the need for 15-minute smart neighborhoods, or as he calls them, sustainable districts, so that way people don't need to own a car. Pay attention as he explains that policies need to change the rules of the game, where sustainability becomes the easier choice not just for people, but for companies. That policy needs to change the environment to create a sustainable lifestyle in harmony with nature. He discusses the 15-minute cities where you don't need a car. Everything is within walking distance. He explains that governments need to follow through on Biden's suggestion that the government only buys through companies who commit to the Paris Accord and who commit to science-based targets. They present this information as if they are creating some sort of utopian society where all the needs of the citizens are met, when in reality, these cities are restrictive and laden with government controls. They want people corralled into these areas and forced to follow the local government charters established by these controlling entities, where your freedoms are curtailed or non-existent and your freedom of movement is limited. Any deviation from the plan, any questioning of the narrative, or their manipulated science would be met with extreme measures. Take a listen.
Yeah, so I think what's important for policy is really to change the rules of the game, no? So that sustainability becomes the easier choice, not just for the people, but also for the companies, no? So I think an important measure in Switzerland was to have support for renewable energy, for energy efficiency, but also then changing the way districts work. For instance, in Zurich we have a lot of districts where you actually don't need a car, because all the activities, school, buying something, everything you can do in walking distance, And by doing that, people don't buy a car, and it's not felt like actually they would like to have a car and they are not allowed to have it, but they simply don't need it because the environment was built in a way that they don't need it. And I think this is what policy needs to do. They have to change the environment. So a sustainable lifestyle, a lifestyle in harmony with nature is the easiest way to go. And also for the companies. And here perhaps a last point. I really like what you said on following through. We had all these nice commitments. We had the Paris Agreement. We also here at World Economic Forum have every year very nice commitments. What's important is really to follow through and also to shed the light. Sometimes you're very critical with those who are acting, say there are, and we need to be critical, and see that there's no greenwashing, but we should also put the light on those who are not acting. And I think policy needs to try, and I think, for instance, Biden's suggestion that the government only buys with companies who commit to Paris, who commit to science-based targets, I think that's a smart policy. So that policy tries to leverage also the action from companies and somehow gets all companies to act. I think this is a smart way to do politics. In the end, policy needs also to be smart, because again, we need to have the buy-in from all the population, else we're not re-elected and change is not happening. So it needs to be smart policy, which is at the same time also transformative.
There is also another story coming out of Scotland, where new measures proposed by the Scottish government in a recent document outline a war on carbon and a war on cars. It includes a plan to implement restrictive 20-minute neighborhoods so that the government can deliver on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Environmentalists have had it in for cars for years, and we all know that the car is public enemy number one. For example, in April 2022, Stephanie O'Gorman, who sits on the Scottish Government's Climate Energy Response Group, said that the construction of houses with double garages drove her bonkers. She told the Edinburgh Science Festival that owning two cars ignores the social and cultural changes taking place as we adapt our lives to live more sustainably. We can't afford for everyone to have two cars, unquote. They keep telling us we don't need a car, but what about the need for an executive jet? What about the need for a luxury yacht? What about the need for a helicopter or a second or third or fourth home? What about their sprawling lakeside mansions and their country clubs? And the list goes on. In November of 2022, the Scottish Government published a revised draft of their National Planning Framework 4, which dramatically begins, quote, "The global climate emergency means that we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to the future impacts of climate change," end quote. They start off telling you, or convincing you rather, that there is a climate emergency, when in fact there is absolutely no emergency whatsoever. A few paragraphs later it states, "We have already taken significant steps towards decarbonizing energy and land use, but choices need to be made about how we can make sustainable use of our natural assets in a way which benefits communities." Don't be fooled by the fluffy language. These efforts are not an attempt to benefit communities. As the draft itself states, the Scottish Government is planning future places on 6 principles that will play a key role in delivering on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We are told that the whole point of sustainable development is to mitigate the problems that will supposedly be caused by humanity's greenhouse gas emissions. The reality is the UN Sustainable Goal for Renewable Energy is sheer fantasy, if not utter madness, and is a scam to enable the rich to become richer off the backs of the poor. One of the Scottish Government's 6 principles to deliver on the UN's goals is called the National Planning Framework, or Local Living. Local living. We will support local livability and improve community health and well-being by ensuring people can easily access services, green space, learning, work, and leisure locally. Their strategy, the draft says, will support the planning and delivery of sustainable places, livable places, and productive places. According to the Scottish Government, a sustainable place includes net zero emissions by 2045, including by reducing car kilometers traveled by 20% and reducing the need to travel and promoting more sustainable transport by 2030. So how exactly can they do this? One of these principles is Policy 15, which promotes local living, including 20-minute neighborhoods. It sounds more like fluffy language because Policy 15 was written with one and only one purpose. And that purpose is to encourage, promote, and facilitate development by applying the place principle. So returning to the proposed restrictions on the freedom to travel, the sole purpose of Policy 15 is to create sustainable modes of transport, including local public transport and safe, high-quality walking, wheeling, and cycling networks, employment, shopping, health and social care facilities, childcare, schools and lifelong learning opportunities, playgrounds and informal play opportunities, parks, green streets and spaces, community gardens, opportunities for food growth and allotments, sport and recreation facilities, public accessible toilets, affordable and accessible housing options, ability to age in place, and housing diversity. There are even other policies which suggest people need permission to leave the community to travel with a set limit on the amount of visits outside your area you may travel. It is the same package of bullcrap rebranded with some fancier technology. Mao gave us the Great Leap Forward and Klaus gave us the Great Reset, in harmony with nature. Where have I heard that before? Oh yeah, it sounds a lot like the Georgia Guidestone inscriptions. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetuity balance with nature. So let's be clear here. The whole climate change narrative is nonsense and should be called the Great Fake Out, because in the end, it is just another taxation revenue stream for big government, all on the backs of the people. You hear them suggest a carbon tax when you exceed their assigned limits, but no one asks one simple question. Where does that taxation money go? Or how does that money solve any of the imaginary carbon issues? Don't let them fool you or shame you into their climate change BS narrative. Be an independent thinker. Walk the narrow path of logic and sound reasoning and shoot their narrative down any chance you get. The fact is, CO2 is a nutrient for life on Earth, and don't let them lock you into an open-air prison. Because essentially, that is what this would be. Thank you for watching. If you found the content useful, please subscribe. And please, if you are able to, support this channel by visiting our affiliate links. Until next time, this is the Rudick Report.